Good evening and welcome to About the Valley. And we have a guest who has returned, Tracy Lovvorn, who actually had a very good primary election.
Yeah,
Did
it's
extremely well. And so she's back now because now she's meeting the next challenge in line here, and that's to win the second congressional seat against her opponent, who is Jim McGovern. Been there a long time. It's kind of
This
time,
is his 22nd year.
time to retire. 20 years is plenty. Time to retire.
6 years is plenty.
Yeah, 6 years is plenty. Yeah, are you committing to 6 years?
I'm committing to 6 years.
Oh, see, so
If-
she's
if I
committing
had
to
the-
3 terms and 3 terms only.
If I had the opportunity, yeah.
Yep, so
And I would do everything in my power to help with that transition.
that's the only way you're gonna get term limits, because the office it had to be changed the Constitution. You need a constitutional amendment to limit the terms of a congressperson.
They could make a law, but you're asking them to cut off their own heads,
Right,
and that's
but
not
I don't
gonna
think they could do it, because it spells it out in the Constitution. You know, when they limited the term of president, they had to amend the Constitution.
Right, but George Washington did it on his own.
Right, he did it on
Because he
his
knew
own.
what was right.
And he set that pace up until FDR, who decided to stay on until he dropped, like a lot of Democrats do. We'll get away from that. What we want to talk to is about where you came from, how you got your start, and where you started out in life, and because you've made quite a journey.
Yeah. Thank you for the opportunity to do this, because I do think I am going to get more questions about who are you, where are you from, and
Yeah.
so I appreciate the opportunity to get it out there. Again, my name's Tracy. I'm running for Congress. You know, that's where it all starts.
Yep.
But I was born in Southern California. You know, I wasn't born here in Massachusetts. I'm the youngest of 4 children. My mother passed away when I was real young, when I was 6 years old.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, but my mom actually committed suicide when I was 6.
Oh,
And it left my father with 4 kids on his own, and he was in his mid-40s.
that makes it tough on the kids. That's kind of what gives you a little stigma in life.
It does.
You have to overcome, and I
You
think you've done
overcome.
well about that.
You overcome, and my dad's family was from Oregon, and so we moved from Southern California to Oregon to be closer to my dad's family.
Yep, so he
And-
could help out.
Exactly.
They could help out.
And we moved to the smallest town imaginable in Central Oregon. It's called Alfalfa. And I literally, in Alfalfa, there's a 2-room schoolhouse, a community hall, and a community store.
So all the grades are within the 2 rooms?
Yeah, it was from 1st grade to 6th grade
Yeah.
was in 2 rooms. So 3 in one room, 3 in the other. That's where I went to elementary school.
3 in each room?
Yes.
That's all 6 students in the whole school? That is a small town.
It's a small town. That's where I grew up.
Well-
I grew up on a small farm. I'm a farmer. You know, we
Yep.
had pigs, chickens, rabbits. We had steers and cows. Of course, dogs, cats, barn. I grew up bucking hay.
What was the biggest crop there? Was it the,
Alfalfa.
I was going to say alfalfa. That's
That
what
was the name of the town.
Yeah.
So we grew, we had it was a small farm for the area, but we had about 20 acres. 10 acres was pasture, and the other 10 we grew our own hay.
Yep.
And that's how we grew up. You know, every summer we were changing pipes for the farmers. You got a nickel a pipe for a hand line to change it twice a day. And the wheel lines, you got $2, to change them twice a day as well. We bucked hay, followed the tractor. And I talked to a lot of people around here, and they grew up the same way.
I did.
Yeah, bucking hay and putting it in the barn and growing our own steers, growing our own pigs, growing
Yep.
our own chickens.
Yeah, you're
and,
self-sufficient.
we were self-sufficient. And looking back on it, again, my dad was in his mid-40s. He was left alone with 4 children.
Yeah.
Again, I was 6. My oldest brother was 16. And it was his way of just dealing with everything that was on his plate at the time. Now, this was the late 70s when we moved up there, and there was a big recession that hit. Late 70s, early 80s.
Oh, I remember quite well, yeah.
And that hit our family really hard, you know.
Interest rates were going through the roof.
Yeah, I remember 18, 20%
Oh,
interest
yeah.
rates. It was absolute insanity. And again, I was just a little kid, but I do remember we struggled pretty hard back then. I
The Jimmy
remember
Carter years.
for about 6 months to a year, I remember my dad was unemployed. And for the first time ever, we got assistance. We had food stamps. And I
Yep.
remember qualifying for free lunch. And at that time, we had a free lunch ticket. And I remember being embarrassed to use it, you know, in front of all my friends. So my dad would give me, I remember I got $1 a day for milk. And a lot of times I would just get the milk, and my friends would be like, "Are you hungry? Are you hungry?" I'd be like, "No, no, I'm fine."
Even though you were.
Even though I was hungry. So for about 6 months, I remember doing that. And then my dad did get a job in Central Oregon at the time. The mills were very. That's where you worked, was at the sawmills.
I was going to say the lumber mills, the sawmills.
So he got a job at the lumber mill, and you know, things got better from there. But I'll never forget, you know, I go down to Wahlburgers now, and
Oh.
one of their burgers is the government cheese burger, and I can relate to that fully, because I remember getting those big blocks of
back
government
then,
cheese.
they used to, you got food stamps, but you also got the provisions.
Yep. You know, I remember we got a huge bag of potatoes that lasted us about a year, and a big block of cheese.
Yeah, you actually got, it was a big, you had to have a slicer.
Oh yeah, it was massive.
Yeah.
But again, it was very short time, and I remember my dad, he appreciated the assistance, but that was not who he was. And that's what I learned by watching him.
Yep.
As soon as he could, he got the opportunity. He worked at the mill. He worked swing shift, so it was that late night shift. I remember he got a job with the city, filling like potholes and whatnot. He was doing that in, you know, 100-degree weather, and he did whatever he needed to do to get us off of that program.
And
But
the older
program
kids
was
had to
needed.
take care of the younger kids.
Yes and no. I was a pretty independent cuss.
Well, you learned to be. You had.
I mean, I was working on the farm and doing everything I could
Yeah.
for my father. So that's the story with Oregon. Unfortunately, well, we moved from Oregon to the central coast of California. My dad got remarried, and my
Up in the
stepmom's
Monterey
family.
area,
More
or-
south,
Oh, okay.
San Luis Obispo, the central
Yeah.
coast. San Luis Obispo. I actually grew up in a little town there. Not grew up, but that's where I finished high school. Was
near
in
Carmel?
Atascadero. Even further, a little bit further south, between Santa Barbara and Carmel, is
Okay.
a little area called San Luis Obispo, and
That's a beautiful area.
it's absolutely incredible. They try not to tell people how nice it is because they want to keep it low. But my
Was it
step
Highway
family
101?
was from exactly.
Yeah.
Yep. Highway 101 runs right through it. El Camino Real.
Yeah.
So my step family was from Atascadero and San Luis Obispo area. So when my dad got remarried, we moved there, and that's where I finished up high school, was the Central Coast of California.
Oh, okay.
So I went from Southern California to Oregon to Central.
That's quite a lot of moving for a child.
We moved around quite a bit. You know, it was a learning experience. Every
Yep.
place that I went, I learned something new. It was
But
absolutely
here again,
phenomenal.
see, your father did what he had to do to survive.
Correct.
You know, even today, people got to realize if there's no jobs where you are, move to where they are. It's pain in the neck, but that's what people did. That's what they did in the Depression.
Right.
That's why all the people from Oklahoma moved to Southern California, because there was no jobs in Oklahoma,
In
there's
the
no
Dust
farms.
Bowl. Yeah, it's there was a lot of moving, you know,
Yeah,
growing up.
but you survived that way.
Well, we survived, and unfortunately, I got another story. My senior year in high school, my father was diagnosed with lung cancer.
Oh, God.
Yeah, we got another big one. So my father was diagnosed with lung cancer in March of my senior year at high school, and he was only given probably about 3 months to live or so. He had two tumors, one in each lung, about the size of a fist each.
Oh.
And but he went on to live a little over a year longer. He passed away the following April. So again, he fought a very good fight.
Yeah, but you were still in high school then when he passed away.
Yeah, well, no, My first year of college.
Oh,
He passed away, and unfortunately, there's a lot of unfortunates here. He passed away right around my birthday in April, my first year of college, and I subsequently met my now husband that September. So my husband never got a chance to meet my father.
no, but in a way, now,
He
you
was a
found a
gift.
replacement, a male replacement in your life.
Yes, and I wish my father would have met him, but you're
Yeah.
right. He brought him to me. So.
Yep.
So I met my husband when I was 19, and I was going to junior
You
college.
met in college?
He was finishing up his senior year at Cal Poly Pomona, and I was going to junior college in Walnut, California, called Mount San Antonio
Oh, okay,
College.
so you weren't in the same school then?
We weren't in the same school. We met at a gym. I was a personal trainer
Oh,
at a health club that he was working out at.
working your way through college.
I had to, because again,
Yep.
I lost both my parents.
Yeah.
So I was working, going to school, and I did play sports all through high school. I played volleyball, basketball, and I ran track, and I was playing basketball in college as well. That was my outlet. So between working, playing basketball, and going to school, that's what I did for my
But,
whole
it builds a
college life.
better person by having that responsibility.
I believe so. I think
Yeah.
sports mimics life, and it's where your friends are. It's
But
where your
with
battles
sports,
are.
with the sports, with the having to work, to pay your tuitions, I mean, you appreciate what you're getting back.
Oh, so much, so much.
Yeah.
You know, that was a very big deal. And a lot of that work ethic came from living on the farm.
Yeah,
You know, when being on a farm, you learn how to sacrifice yourself for something else. You know,
Yeah.
it's literally 20 degrees below zero. It's 5 o'clock in the morning. You
and you gotta
have
go out
to
and
wake
milk
up.
the cows.
You have to,
Yeah.
or they're going to explode.
Exactly, you have no
to,
alternative.
and you want to, because you want to take care. You learn that they are relying on you, so you can't just sleep in. You
No.
have to wake up and take care. Learning that at such a young age on the farm, that's exactly what I
And
did all through
the
school.
animals have to be fed.
They have to be fed, watered. You know, when your water's all frozen, you
Yes.
literally have to take buckets
Oh, yeah.
from the house out to the troughs, you know, morning and night. So
I did that I had a small, I grew up in a 6-family house.
yeah,
But my father came from a farm, a working farm, but then by the time he was older, all we did was hay it. Because he would sell the hay to pay the taxes for my grandmother.
gotcha.
So our summers were spent haying.
Well,
So I know what haying is. But when my kids were little, I built a house on that farm. So my kids were little, I went out and got chickens and geese and ducks and a couple of goats.
I have
And
goats.
we had them and rabbits. We had them for years. So I had all these animals around. Wanted them to give them the experience.
It's
But I'd have to get up before I went to work
oh yeah.
in the winter
You
and
put
go
in
out
a
and
full
get
day
them
of
water.
work before you go to work,
Yeah.
and then when you come home,
Yeah,
you're
you gotta
doing
do it
all that
again.
before you go to
Yeah.
bed. I remember the best feeling ever was at the end of the day when you can finally take off your shoes.
Yes.
I'll never forget that feeling. It's about 7:30, 8 o'clock at night, working all day. And this is, again, when I'm 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, through my early teens, putting that work in
And you
just
slept well
taking
because
off
you
my
were so
shoes.
tired.
Oh, yeah. And I was I was super strong.
Well,
back
yeah,
then.
you build up your muscles working on a farm because it's a lot of heavy work.
You do. So putting that same effort in college, it made who I am. In college, playing basketball, I injured myself. I strained just a strained muscle. It wasn't anything major, but it got me
Right.
in the athletic training room. And
Oh.
that's where I discovered athletic training, and that's where I discovered physical therapy.
Uh-huh.
And I absolutely fell in love with it. It was a career choice that it fit me perfectly in my personality because I always liked science and biology. The difference, though, between medicine and nursing to physical therapy. Physical therapy, I coach you how to get better.
Right.
I can't do anything to make you do it. You have to do it. You have to put in the
You can
work.
say how, but you can't do it for them.
Right. There's things I can do to help facilitate it. You know, I can use my hands. I can help. But ultimately, you have to do the job. And that is exactly who I am as a person, and that speaks to how I will be in politics as well. I've seen so many people be successful, and I've helped them be successful. But again, it's not me doing it. It's me helping you do it. It's, you know, teaching a man how to fish. And that's
Right.
what I want to bring to the table.
Right, you make them better by them making themselves better.
Right, exactly, and they have to do it. So I discovered that while I was playing basketball. And physical therapy school, it's still hard to get into. Back in when I was applying, it was the second or third hardest school to get into behind law school and medical school. I applied to a bunch of different physical therapy schools. The one I got into was Mount St. Mary's College, Mount St. Mary's University in Los Angeles. At the time I got in, there were 40 kids that got in out of close to 1,000 applications.
Is that because so many people are interested, or?
Yeah, it's just a great career, and there's not a lot of programs, or there wasn't, especially back then.
Right.
And so it's just a very competitive situation. So I ended up getting in, and that was wonderful. You know, I remember I was about 21 years old. I got into physical therapy school, and I got a tattoo.
Oh.
I got a tattoo. I have one tattoo on my body, and it's on my ankle, and it's a Superman emblem.
Oh.
And I remember I got it when I was 21. I got into physical therapy school, and I absolutely felt like I could do anything. And I wanted to always remember how that felt.
Well, the tattoos, being a physical therapist, would you tell people that, you know, one day you're going to get older?
Mm-hmm.
Do you really want to do that?
I don't highly recommend it, and it hurt. It surprised me how much it hurt. I never got another one. I know people say they're addictive. You get one, you get more and more.
Oh
That's
my God.
not
I see some people
necessarily my personality, but I think I surprise people a little bit when I tell them, yeah, I have a tattoo. But again, I got it for that purpose.
Right.
I wanted to look down and
Well,
remember
but on the
how
ankle
I
is
felt.
that's not bad.
I can cover it with a sock.
Yeah, and, you know, I mean, I got a friend that's 70 years old who has one on her ankle,
Yeah,
and she got it when she's probably in her 50s.
that's.
But like I said, that's not bad. But some people just get covered in,
Right.
especially on the face, because one day your skin's going to sag.
Yeah.
If you live long enough.
You'd hope so, but now you got Botox and all that stuff. But
Yeah, but I mean, what people do to their bodies sometimes, I know, but we don't want to digress too much.
I
Here.
like that story because again, it usually surprises people. But that's
So
why
then
I got it. I got
so
into
then you
Peace
finally
School.
graduated and went into physical
Yep,
therapy?
I went into physical therapy, and I started out in outpatient orthopedic sports medicine because again, with my history with sports.
But that's also become very popular. When I was back in school, you didn't hear about sports medicine.
No, now it's
You
gotten
wouldn't hear much
bigger and
about
bigger.
anything about any medicine as far as sports goes.
Right. Well, now it's so big because it's not just for sports, you know, it's
Right.
for everybody because,
Yes.
you know, living your life, again, going back to how sports is life, it's true. Even if you're sitting at a desk all day long, that is your sport. That's what
Right.
you're trying to prepare for. That's what you have to train your body to be able to do. But very shortly after entering the field, I got into skilled nursing, and I started working with the elderly.
Oh.
And it really surprised me that was where I gravitated towards. Being from a sports background, I ended up, when you work with elderly people, everybody that I've met in that field, there's something very special about them because it's an environment that's just incredible. Every little thing that you do for somebody can make such a big difference. Right now, I do have a physical therapy clinic, an outpatient, and I love what I do, and it goes back to my roots with sports medicine. But I still know that if you come see me in my outpatient clinic, typically it's because you might have pain right here in your elbow, or pain in your neck or back or hips or knees. But when I see somebody in skilled nursing, it's their whole person. It's their whole body, you know, and there's so many medical complications, and they're so that may be weak or frail. And if we could just help them to be able to sit up and eat, you know, and be able to share with their
And
families.
use physical therapy for that.
Exactly. So that's.
What about arthritis? Is it help with arthritis?
Yeah, it can't, now we're going to talk physical therapy, but it doesn't make arthritis go away. But
No.
what you do is you strengthen certain muscles, you stretch other ones,
Right.
and you help support the joint so that it's not as aggressively affected. You know,
Right.
it can help calm it down, it can help prevent it from getting as worse as fast, and it really can help.
I have it on my knees, and my rheumatoid doctor told me that use a pedal bike.
Yep, use it or lose it,
Yeah.
and you lose it rapidly.
Believe me, he made me 100% better than I ever was.
So yeah, it's a great field. But again, you had to actually get on the bike and pedal.
Right.
You know, you had to do the
And I
work.
get on a treadmill as
But
well.
we just get to coach you and how to make yourself better. And
Yeah.
it's very empowering, you know, and in the skilled nursing or, you know, in a situation where somebody's lost a limb and you actually have to, you get the opportunity to teach them how to walk again, or how to
Yeah.
transfer from bed to a wheelchair into a car on their own. You know, it's empowering. And that's, again, who I am as a person.
Especially now with the artificial limbs they got that are
It's
amazing.
they're getting them to where you can plug them into the nerves
know.
and actually control it with it's
Yeah.
fabulous what's happening.
And that's where physical therapy is going to become really big, because you're going to have to
It's-
train someone to use that artificial limb.
Yeah, it's a great field. I would highly recommend it to
Yeah.
anybody.
Well, anyway, then
that's where
from
I'm
California you ended up,
Yeah, then
well,
I got into
you got married.
I got married. I've been married 24 years to my husband.
Yeah.
We have two sons, Zachary and Alexander, 19, and my son Zachary just turned 21 this year.
Oh.
And but when I started doing skilled nursing, that's when I started getting more into not just the clinical aspects of healthcare, but I started getting in. I kind of grew up a corporate ladder. I started getting into clinical and operational management, and I started overseeing multiple facilities. And
Oh, so you really moved up in the job field.
exactly, and like you were saying, maybe I must have learned it from my father as far as moving around, because then an
Yeah.
opportunity in the same company I was working for in Southern California, opportunity was in North Carolina. And we actually moved from Southern California to North Carolina. Cost of living between the two states was, you know, kind of a no-brainer. So we lived in North Carolina for a couple years, and sometimes people ask me where I'm from because they'll hear a draw in my
Well,
in
if you
my
live in
voice,
the
in my
South long
speech.
enough, you pick it up.
I picked it up very quickly,
Yep.
and so sometimes it really comes out very strong. But that's where it comes from. I did live in the South for a few years, and it definitely comes out more prevalent in certain
Yes.
cases. So I was with that company, and we lived there for a couple years, and within the exact same company, I moved up the ladder again, and we had the opportunity to go back actually to Southern California. We did that, and that was wonderful. It was a
This is
little
no
weird.
problem for your husband?
No, he does computers. He works in the computer industry, and honestly, he was working with the same company, because it's kind of confusing, but when we were in Carolina, he was actually working for the same company he was in Southern California. He was just working from home.
Right, so he works out of his house.
Right.
Out of the house, so.
He was able to do that at that
Because
time.
that can be a problem in the family where you have both, the husband and wife both trying to move up in the corporate ladder,
Right.
and and moving up requires you to move,
Right.
you know, what does the other one do?
Exactly, and you know what?
But it worked
Nothing
out
has
well for
ever
you.
been hard. People are always like, "Wow, why, that must be so difficult. How did you do that?" And you know what? When you open, for us anyway, when we were open to changes, everything happened readily.
Yes.
It wasn't hard. It just kind of happened, and I honestly believe a lot of that's in God's hands. You know, we weren't trying to force anything, but one
Yep.
opportunity led to another. One door would close, a window would open, and we were just very open to
Yep.
listening to God, where do you want us to go next?
Yes.
And that's where he took us. I
Yep.
firmly believe that, because it was never difficult. It was just going through the motions.
The opportunities are there if you're going to take it.
Right. And you got to be, to me, you just have to be mindful. You
Yep.
have to step back and just kind of ask, you know, where should
Yes.
I go next? And that's where it took us. From there, some things happened. That company closed down, and honestly, it brought us out to Maryland. But my husband's corporate office was in Maryland, and
So
I
that
got
worked out
another,
well.
and I got another promotion. So again, we came back out to
Okay,
the
you went to
East
work for a
Coast.
different company in Maryland?
Yes, yes, and that was the one that I talk about a lot, where I discovered the Medicare fraud.
Oh, yes. We got a call here.
Oh, okay.
Let me grab this and get to know someone. Here, let me see. Get this right. Go ahead, caller. You're on.
Hey, good evening.
Hi, Barry.
Good evening. Congratulations, Tracy, on your win on the primary.
Thank you so much.
Okay. Okay. What I was wondering, I just wanted to reaffirm that, as Harry knows, the town is going to be looking to build a new school and potentially a fire station. And I just was wondering, if you do get elected, you're still open to the town manager coming in and seeing if there's any federal funds or grants that would be possible for the town. Just wanted to reaffirm on that. That'd be number one.
Yeah, I think most definitely. You know, there's about 60 towns and cities in this district, and one of the things that I learned in corporate management of multiple facilities is, going to each facility and asking, what do you need to be able to do your job?
Right.
It doesn't mean that I can guarantee, we're going to get you everything. But I need to know what you need to do your job so that you can actually execute and do your job. I
That'd be
can't,
great.
again, as a physical therapist, same thing. I'm not going to do the job for you, but I'm sure going to do everything possible to enable you and empower you to do the job you need to do for your people that you're supporting.
Right. I mean, like the town won't know unless they ask. So I just wanted to make sure on that.
Right,
And the other thing you
and
brought
I'll
up,
be
you brought up a
asking the
good
town.
point about Medicare, and a lot of people that Medicare only pays for the first 90 days of nursing home care, and it's just it's really hard to believe that the trillions and gazillions of dollars this country spends, overseas and for foreign countries. I think we spent about $10 trillion on the war so far. That that Medicare doesn't cover long-term care, and if you don't fall within certain income guidelines, Medicaid doesn't cover it, and as you know, nursing home care is, I think it's like up to $10,000 a month, and it just seems like it would make sense for Medicare to cover it. Is that something you possibly could champion for the people if you get elected?
I think it's definitely worth looking into, and you're right. It's 100 days of Medicare A coverage, and then the first 20 days is covered 100%, and then after that, Medicare covers 80%, and then a lot of times people have a secondary to cover that, and then after the 100 days, then you start looking at Medicaid. But like you're saying, not everybody qualifies for Medicaid, and then unfortunately, what we've created. And the whole system is a mess. There's no doubt about it. One of the things that happened with my Medicare case was that there's so many rules and regulations, and it's so convoluted. Medicare is the second most regulated industry in the United States, second only to nuclear power.
Right.
And what happens when you have that many rules, people start playing games.
Yes.
And then what they do is they overcharge Medicare to make up for the lower paying
Medicaid.
Right.
And so they're gaming one system to make up for another system. And that's the system that the government has created. And so I think one of the things we have to do is, okay, look at this realistically. Take out a lot of these rules and regulations and see what's left over. I do understand the situation, and this is probably for a whole nother segment, but there are times when people play the Medicaid, they play that game as well. There's some people are qualifying for Medicaid or Mass Health that are questionable, that they shouldn't be qualifying. Maybe they've only been here a few years, they've never paid into the system.
There's some that just got here that get
Exactly.
into it. Illegal aliens get into
And
it.
so then that's the argument that I hear people saying, well, it's not fair. They qualify. I should qualify as well.
Right.
Now, then there's the opposite case is true as well. There's people that can afford it,
Yeah.
but they do a very good job of working
Hiding
to
their
hide
income.
their income to make sure that it's protected.
Well, you have lawyers that help you do that.
Right, and I understand they're wanting to do that because you
Yep.
don't want to, it's not fair, because if
Right.
they can qualify, why are you going to take everything that I've worked for?
Right.
And so the system's broken. However, if we were able to police it better, and only people that did qualify, that really did truly need Mass Health and Medicaid, I think it would be more palatable for the people to pay if they can actually afford it. Now,
Right.
because I've seen families, that they're keeping mom and dad's assets,
Yep.
but they're not helping mom or dad.
Right.
And so the whole system is messed up, and I think you're not going to get somebody that understands it better than I do to at least have these conversations.
Right,
and
'cause
to
I mean,
look
everything
at,
you said justifies the case for it to be covered under Medicare, and also if it was covered under Medicare, that it would also be, like how Medicare sets rules for prescriptions. They could also set financial guidelines for nursing homes. So it wouldn't be that cost. It's
Well,
like
see,
I said, if you have to pay, to some places they're charging $15,000 a month.
right. I look at it differently, though. I'm definitely not a supporter of Medicare for all, and I'm definitely not a supporter of single-payer health care.
Right.
But I am a supporter of, there does need to be rules and regulations, but they need to be limited. Right now, there's so many, and it's so convoluted, and it increases the price of everything. It decreases the quality of care because our caregivers spend more time documenting and taking care of Medicare rules than they actually do caring for patients.
Right, right.
And one of the things I
I'm
would
focusing
challenge.
on seniors that are on Medicare, and that that when they that when they need the nursing home. So that's kind of like where I'm at, because that this would pertain to people that are already on Medicare,
Right.
and I'm just saying that they should be entitled to, even if it's 2 years of paid nursing home care.
Right.
I mean, that'd be a start, because, like I said, if you don't qualify for Mass Health, I mean, you could lose you could lose your house, your assets, and everything just on nursing home.
One of the things, if you go to my website, it's tracyforcongress.com, TRACYFOR, tracyforcongress.com. One of the things I do put in there is a proposal for Medicaid and Social Security, is keeping it the way it is or making it better, like what you're talking about. But we do have to look at restructuring it. Medicare, I mean, we could have a whole discussion on Medicare, but Medicare, when it was first made, it was made to supplement the last 5 years
Well, yeah.
of somebody's life.
Yeah, because you figured 70 years old when you'd be gone.
And it was mostly made for widows,
Yes.
assuming that the husband, who was the primary breadwinner, was going to pass away.
Yep.
It was there to supplement a widow's last 5 years.
Yep.
We're at a point today in this country where people are living 30 years after retirement. And we're also at a point in this country where the medical gains and the cost of care have skyrocketed. And we've also put onto the Medicare system, Social Security is part of that, as well as disability. And that's not the way Medicare was designed, yet Medicare is still structured the same as it was originally.
Right.
And that's going to implode. That is a system that will self-implode upon itself unless we take the time to restructure it. And I fully believe we do need to restructure it. I don't think it should affect our current seniors or even the next wave in, but I think starting with my generation, I think we need to say, okay, I know I'm going to, knock on wood, there's a very good chance I'm going to be living quite long compared to how Medicare was originally
Well, you know,
structured. We need to change this system.
People are working longer,
Right.
and when you're 65, no choice. You got Medicare.
Got to go on right, Harry.
You
Yeah.
have no alternative.
Yeah.
Now, in my retirement from my career job, I have medical,
Oh,
okay, and I still have it. But at 65, it had to become supplemental
right.
because Medicare says, hey, you got no choice.
Mhm.
My wife is covered. When she turned 65, same thing. Now, if it wasn't mandatory, the company would have kept covering me after 65,
Mhm.
as they did prior to 65.
Yeah, it's those kind of things
If
that
someone
doesn't make any sense.
If you're working, and there are people that are over 65 that are still working full time because they like what they do. They
Right.
don't want to retire.
And they're healthy, you know,
And they're healthy,
70, 80s
but
even.
they have to get Medicare.
Right, you're right, Harry, because that's what they said. At 65, you got to go on Medicare.
Yeah.
Yeah, so obviously those are some of the things that need to change. Because again, when Medicare was first made, that wasn't the case.
Right.
You
Now,
know, you were looking at 5 more years,
and
and
in the
most
same
likely
light,
you were going to not
I
be
had health
around.
coverage, and I didn't have to pay for it because that was part of the package I got.
Yeah.
Right, I mean,
But when I
Yeah.
went on Medicare, they deducted out of my Social Security check.
right.
Yeah, right. And then they give you, finally, they give us a Social Security raise, but they always bump up your Part B premium.
Right, so you never see the raise.
So you never see the raise.
Right.
You know, there is a lot that needs to be fixed with that. I don't, like I said, I don't support single payer. I look to the VA system for how broken and corrupt that system got as to one of the reasons why I don't support it. However, I fully support exactly what you're saying. It's obviously a system that needs to be looked at, needs to be fixed. It's
Right.
imploding upon itself, and we're in the crosshairs. You know, it's
Right.
just affecting each one of us. So quit talking about it. Again, it goes back to pointing fingers, casting blame. There's so much gridlock in D.C. right now. Nobody's getting anything done, and that's not, our current congressman is not helping with that situation, and I think it's time that we just go in there, roll up our sleeves, and actually get some work
Yeah, at
done.
least get something done.
Exactly.
And lastly, Harry, the other thing about Social Security, right now the Social Security death benefit is $225.
Oh, I know, that's a joke.
I don't think that's ever been increased since
No.
Social Security was implemented in 1938, Harry.
No, what happens is the undertaker automatically just takes the money.
Yeah, but like I say, $225
You're not
or
going to
whatever.
they're not
that's
going to, they're not
that's
even going to
nothing.
handle your body for that.
right, right.
I know, you can't get cremated for that.
Right. I mean, like I said, we're taking care of the whole world, but the Social Security death benefit for people
Right.
that worked all their life hasn't been increased since 1938. It's crazy.
There's
Go ahead.
another one that I hear people talking about a lot is when you've worked, like, this happened to my mother-in-law. My father-in-law had worked half of his career in the private industry, and the
Right.
other half of his career he worked for the Orange County in California.
Okay.
Right.
She had worked for Orange County as well.
Right.
So when he passed away, she could not qualify to get his Social Security benefit because she had worked for the county and was she worked for the state, basically.
Yes. If you're
And
drawing
so-
a government pension, you can't get Social Security.
Right. That-
So
that-
half
that-
of his
that's wrong.
career, they deducted Social Security.
Right, he paid
and
it, now he doesn't get
just
it.
went into the pot.
Yep.
Right.
And that happens to people over and over again. And
Right.
that's very wrong as well.
Right, because they didn't take the depreciated value when people were working under Social Security. They took it at the same rate as though you would get the full amount, but because you work for a public sector employment or government, you're penalized and you don't get your Social Security.
Right.
I mean, it's with all the other crazy things that go on in the world, and they penalize people that work.
You know, and one of the, you know, with disability being part of Social Security and Medicare as well, you know, just policing that industry, you know, as a physical therapist, one of the things I did throughout Worcester County for about 3 years is I was performing home care. And I saw it with my own eyes over and over again. You know, after that recession of 2006, 2008, the number of disability claims like over doubled.
Oh, yeah.
And not all of those are based on truth.
Right.
And I've seen it firsthand. I've seen able-bodied people in their 30s, 40s, 50s.
Yeah, you don't have a job, you can't find one, well, go on disability.
Exactly, and I've seen it. And they actually got paid more on their disability
Yeah.
than they would if they got a job.
Not to
and
mention it's tax-free.
it's not right. It's very much not right. And those are the situations that do need to be policed more.
Yep.
Because a lot of times we have the money, there's money there, just like what you're saying, caller. But the thing is the waste, the fraud, waste, and abuse. If we could clean that up and actually just focus on the people that need it, I think we're going to be in a heck of a lot better shape.
Well, Social Security is not bankrupting the system. By Social Security, I mean for people over 65. What's bankrupting the system is SSI,
Right.
which
But it's
is
all-
which is a disability thing.
Yeah.
But it's
Well,
all
well,
coming out
well,
of
the other
the
thing too,
same
Harry,
pot.
is the government took trillions of dollars out of the Social Security Trust Fund
Oh, yeah.
to fund the Vietnam War and the Great Society, and they never put it back.
Well,
So that's
right,
another
well,
another thing. I mean,
They still use it to balance the
Social
budget.
Security
Yeah.
Trust Fund would be fully funded if they put back the money they took out of it.
Right.
You know.
Yeah, that's
But anyway, hey, I'll let you guys go, and good luck, Tracy, and thank you very much.
Thank you for
Okay.
calling.
Thank you. Yeah, the thing is that there's SSI came in, I think, in the late '60s, and that's what started bringing down what was put away in that system.
Yeah, I mean, there's so much to it, and it doesn't make sense that we're going to go off on another little tangent, but it's so true. You know, somebody asked me, they said, what do you feel like about, you know, the president having so much power? And I was like, you know what's happening, and in my point of view, and I think there's a lot of validity to this, is you saw it, I think we saw it a lot with President Bush
Yep.
and his executive orders. Then we saw it with Obama and his executive
He
orders.
even said it. He goes, "I got a pen and a phone, and I'm going to rule by executive order."
But the fact is he had to, because Congress
Right,
doesn't
isn't doing
do
the job.
anything. And now we have
Right.
now we have Trump doing the same thing. You can look at video of President Obama and what he was dealing with in the border situation,
Yep.
and now compare it exactly to what Trump is dealing with, and they are word for word identical.
Yep.
Because President Obama was begging Congress to do their job. He said Congress needs to do something because this is broken. And he even said that when I'm making this order, he's like, I don't know if it's legal and it's only temporary. It's giving you guys time to do something. Congress did not do anything,
Yeah,
and
but
that
this has been-
includes Jim
this has
McGovern.
this has happened over the course of a number of years.
50 years or more.
It's when,
It's
well,
a long
even long-
time, yeah.
You know, when FDR started creating the alphabet government, you might say, all these different
The
bureau-
agencies, yeah.
yeah, bureaus that they've got now. And that's how the government runs the country now, by bureaucrats.
So you have four branches of government
Yeah,
now. And
exactly.
you have the ABC bureaucrats,
Yeah.
the agencies, and since Congress is not doing their job, and they're afraid to stand up for anything, it creates this log jam. Nothing happens, so we don't have laws. We just get more and more regulations, and we have power then going to the president that shouldn't be there, on all presidents. And then we also have our judicial system being politicized,
Oh, very much so.
which it should never be politicized. There's nothing political about the Supreme Court.
They're there to rule on the constitutionality of the law.
Right.
And that's not even in the
to make
Constitution.
the
That's
law.
that only came about because Jay, who was an early Supreme Court justice, came up with the concept of ruling on constitutionality. That's not. It doesn't say in the Constitution that they do that.
And I do pin it. I can't pin everything on Congressman McGovern, but the fact is he's been there for 22 years. He's part of the fabric of the trouble.
Right.
You can't expect anything to change if you continue to do the same thing over and over again. You know, there's a definition of doing the same thing over and over again
Well,
and
we've
expecting
seen,
results to change.
They're talking about the booming economy now, and Obama's trying to take credit for it. But let's be honest, it started to boom when Trump started deregulating, getting rid of a lot of the regulations that the bureaucrats put on.
Well, so much of that, and I think there's a misconception when you say deregulating, because what he said was, for every one regulation, get
Right.
rid of 10.
Yeah.
They've been getting rid of 20. But they're not getting rid of regulations, they're just getting rid of the redundancy and
Right.
the overburden of them. And there's still a long way to go.
Oh.
But yeah, just the fact that we're finally looking at that and getting rid of some of the bureaucracy, getting rid of some of these, we just don't need them. You know, they're just a waste. And that's where, again, a lot of this goes to the dysfunction in Congress.
You know, go back to the 60s, you had a department called HEW, Health, Education, and Welfare. Well, what do we got now? We got 3 out of that one department, and I'm talking cabinet level.
Yeah.
And now we've added in, we had, of course, they added education under Jimmy Carter, but even Ronald Reagan, who was supposedly going to, for smaller government, he added the Veterans Department.
Yeah, it's too much, and we just need to peel it back. Or our only other choice is to continue to go down this
Right.
route of socialism. Do we want to be a socialist nation, or do we want to remain a constitutional republic? And to me, that's 100% what this election is all about. It's saying enough is enough. We want to maintain our republic. We need to start peeling back some of these
Well,
programs.
The people have a chance to show how much they want government regulated by who they vote for. If Congress would do its job and establish the regulations themselves,
It's been
not hand it to bureaucracies.
It's incredible. You know, I put out a thing on my Facebook, and I encourage everybody to please go to my website. It's tracyforcongress.com. Follow me on Facebook. Those are really the only 2 ways that I have to get information out. You can follow my page. It's Tracy Lovvorn for Congress on Facebook. And I put something out there just recently that talks about when somebody supports a bill, you know, that you have the actual somebody that write the bill, but then you have somebody that sponsors a bill.
Yep.
And it sounds wonderful. It sounds great. If I come to you as a constituent and say, hey, I sponsored a bill for that. But when you look into what sponsoring a bill means, it means absolutely nothing.
No.
It means nothing. It means that at the very last minute, you can sign your name to the bill. Somebody else does all the work, and people like you and me, we listen. We're like, oh, you co-sponsored that bill. That's great. It doesn't mean anything.
Where did it go?
Sometimes it doesn't impact whether that bill passes or gets signed into law, or if it's dead. It doesn't mean just because I co-sponsor yours, you might co-sponsor mine. It literally is a term that is being thrown around to make it seem like you're actually doing something.
Right.
And I got to tell you, Jim McGovern has co-sponsored. In 2017, he co-sponsored the second most bills of any other U.S. representative. And I've seen it over and over again. He'll come back and he'll use that to his advantage, and he makes it sound like he did something special for you. And literally, he was out in Western Massachusetts last October talking to the breweries, the microbreweries in
Right,
Western
right.
Mass. And he went out there and told them, hey, I just co-sponsored a bill it's better for you guys. And it really was a good bill that helped microbrewers. The bill was introduced in January, and people were co-signing it, signing on to it, co-sponsoring it all through. Jim McGovern co-sponsored it late July, just before he goes out to Central Mass and takes credit for it.
Yeah,
And
so he looks over the amount of bills that are out there and says, oh, here's a good one, I can go out to Western Mass and say,
exactly, and
yeah.
he uses them to his advantage, and
Yeah.
it sounds wonderful.
But
I
what is that bill
co-sponsored
now?
a bill.
Has it gone out of has it got out of the House?
It did. That one, I believe, did go through, and it actually is helping. But again, he took credit for something he didn't actually do.
Right.
And that's what co-sponsoring is. And I think we have the opportunity to educate ourselves on this and call people out.
I'll bet he didn't co-sponsor the tax cut.
No, and that's another one. You know, not only did he not co-sponsor it, he outwardly spoke against it.
Yes.
And not only did he outwardly speak against it, he creates this I call it mass hysteria for Massachusetts. It's mass hysteria. According to Jim McGovern, that tax cut, and he'll still say it, is only for the most wealthy. It's a sham. Now that tax cut, I just, again, posted something the other day, just yesterday. It came out how middle class income has risen for the first time in years.
Yeah, in 20 years, I believe.
It's actually increased. The
Yes.
number of jobs, we have more jobs than we have people to fill them.
Right,
What
by
that-
600,000.
But what that's allowing people to do is quit. The quitting rate has skyrocketed, which means people have the power to say, you know what, I'm going to quit unless you give me a $2 raise.
Right, I'm going to go out and find a job that pays more.
Exactly. And so wages now have the opportunity to start going
You also
up.
can go looking for a job that you might like.
You might like it, you're going to get paid more, and
Yeah.
you have the power now of choice. And
Right.
that's increasing wages without the government stepping in and making another regulation. It can happen with the free market.
You don't need a minimum pay rate. If you have a good economy, the minimum pay rate is not even essential.
You know, that's where, I want to talk about a little bit between me and Jim McGovern is why I'm a Republican. Because people nowadays, I hear, you're a Republican, you're a Russian troll. You know, they call me a Russian, I'm a Russian bot, I'm a Russian troll. And of course, you got to add all the other words. I'm a racist, supposedly. They call me a xenophobe. Somehow I'm even misogynist, even though I'm a female. But I got to tell you, I'm a Republican because Abe Lincoln's a Republican.
Yeah.
I'm a Republican because Martin Luther King is a Republican.
Yes.
I'm a Republican because the Republican Party is the party of civil rights. The Republican Party is why we have women's suffrage. Abby Kelly Foster is from Worcester. Abby Kelly Foster in 1850, she was traveling around the United States spearheading the first National Women's Conference to be held here in Worcester.
We got to wrap it up quick.
Okay, sorry, but anyway, that's why I'm
No.
a Republican.
I just want to say, when they do name calling, that's all they can do. Show me what you really do. Show me what the Democrats have done that they shouldn't be called that, because they can't show you anything.
No.
Okay, we got to go.
Sorry.
We're taking next week off. We have the annual dinner here. We'll be back in 2 weeks. We're going to have the school committee here, the building committee. And we'll see you then. And we're going to say it real quick.
Just go to my website, tracyforcongress.com. Again, follow me on Facebook. It's Tracy Lovvorn for Congress. And we got a long ways to go. Hopefully I can get your support.
Okay. See you in 2 weeks.